Welcome to the Folktale Project. This is Dan Scholz. Today we're starting back up with Bee, Princess of the Dwarves, and today we have Chapter 10, where we're going to learn so much more about the dwarves, in which the wonders of the kingdom of the dwarves are thoroughly described, as well as the dolls which were given to Bee. The kingdom of the dwarfs was deep and stretched under a great part of the earth. Though the sky was only visible here and there through openings in the rock, the open places, the roads, the palaces, and halls were not buried in the thickest night. Only a few rooms and several caverns remained in darkness. The others were lighted not by lamps and torches, but by planets and meteors which shed a wild, fantastic brightness, and this brightness shone upon strange marvels. Enormous buildings had been hewn in the face of the rock. In certain places, palaces cut out of granite rose to such a height up under the vaults of the huge caverns that their stone carvings disappeared in a mist pierced by the yellowish light of the little planets less luminous than the moon. There were in those kingdoms fortresses of stupendous mass, amphitheaters whose stone tiers formed a semicircle which the eye could not embrace in its full extent, and vast wells with sculptured sides in which no plummet could ever have found a bottom. All these structures, apparently unsuited to the stature of their inhabitants, agreed perfectly with their quaint, fantastic turn of mind. The dwarves, wrapped in hoods with sprigs of fern leaves stuck in them, moved about these buildings with the nimbleness of spirits. It was quite common to see one jump from the height of 2 or 3 stories on to the lava pavement and rebound like a ball. His face retained in that act the calm, majestic expression which sculptors give to the heads of ancient great men. There was no indolence, and all applied themselves to their work. Whole quarters resounded with the noise of hammers, the shrieks of machinery echoed against the cavern roofs. And it was a curious sight to see the crowd of miners, smiths, gold beaters, jewelers, diamond polishers handle their pickaxes, hammers, pinchers, and files with the dexterity of monkeys. But there was a more peaceful quarter. There, uncouth and huge figures, shapeless pillars dimly projected from the rough stone, they seemed to be aged and venerable. There rose a squat palace with low doors. It was the palace of King Loc. Just opposite was the house of Bee, house, or rather cottage, with only one room in it, and this was hung with white muslin. Fir-wood furniture spread its pleasant scent in the room. A cleft in the rock let in the light of sky, and on fine nights stars were visible. Bee had no special servants, but the whole dwarf nation struggled in emulation to supply all her needs and anticipate all her wishes, except that of reascending above ground. The most learned dwarfs who possessed great secrets took pleasure in teaching her, not with books, for dwarfs do not write, but by showing her all the planets of the mountains and the valleys, the different kinds of animals, and the various stones which are drawn from the bosom of the earth. And it was by sights and examples that they, with their gay simplicity, taught her the wonders of nature and the methods of art. They made toys for her, such as no rich children on the earth have ever had, for these dwarfs were capable and invented marvelous machines. In those depths they put together for her dolls that could move with grace and express themselves according to the rule of poetry. When assembled in a little theatre, of which the scenery represented the seashore, the blue sky, palaces, and temples, these dolls played tragedies of surpassing interest. Though they were not much longer than a man's arm, they looked exactly, some like reverend old men, others like men in the prime of life, or like lovely maidens dressed in white robes. There were also among them mothers, clasping to their bosoms innocent little children. And these eloquent dolls spoke and acted on the stage as if they were moved by hatred, love, or ambition. They passed cleverly from joy to grief, and so well did they imitate nature that they raised smiles or drew tears. Bee clapped her hands at the show. The dolls, who aimed at tyranny, made her shudder with disgust. On the other hand, she poured treasures of compassion on the doll who, once a princess, now a widow and a captive, her head crowned with cypress, has no other means of saving the life of her child than marrying, alas, the barbarian who made her a widow. Bee never grew tired of this game, in which the dolls introduced infinite variety. The dwarfs also gave concerts for her and taught her to play the lute, the viola, the theorbo, the lyre, and diverse other kinds of instruments. In such a fashion she became a good musician, and the plays represented by the dolls gave her an experience of men and life. King Loc was present at these plays and concerts, but he saw and heard no one else but Bee, and his whole soul was gradually drawn towards her. Meanwhile, days and months passed, years made their round, and still Bee stayed among the dwarfs, incessantly amused, and always full of regret for the earth. She was growing into a beautiful young woman. Her strange fate gave a touch of strangeness to her face, only adding to it another charm. And that is Chapter 10 of Bee, Princess of the Dwarfs, in which we see the wonders of the kingdoms of the dwarfs, and we learn how they're keeping Bee up to date and schooled in how to deal with people, and music, and other learnings. It really is wonderfully described, and you get a beautiful picture of the place, don't you? This is Dan Scholz from the Folktale Project. Don't forget that you can subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Play, Overcast, anywhere you like to get your podcasts. You can follow us on Twitter at Folktale Project. You can find us on Auto Radio, TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio, Spotify, anywhere you like to listen. And you can always head over to folktaleproject.com, where you'll find a new story waiting for you every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. As always, thank you so much for listening.